Good evening, Holliston, and welcome to the October 23rd meeting of the Holliston School Committee. Is that all set? Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? That passes. And we'll start with a report from our students.
Okay. First off, we've had a lot of senior nights recently. Girls soccer had their senior night Tuesday, volleyball had it yesterday, and boys soccer are having it tonight, right now.
The homecoming game and dance was last Friday. Most people in our little committee or council said it was successful, and they said superlatives were definitely a highlight of that.
A lot of athletes are being recognized right now. Daniel Demora is going to play for the deaf national soccer team in Tokyo for the Deaf Olympics next month. Freshman Lucy Downin was the Tri-Valley League champion for girls cross country, and Nikki Martin was Metro West Player of the Week last week for boys soccer. The chainsaw presentation went well last Wednesday, so that's Green, the machine, came and talked to the freshmen, and then also seniors were able to use that day for post-graduate exploration. The senior class is hosting a dumpster day this Saturday. You can sign up for getting your junk. The sign up for getting your junk picked up has ended, but you can still drop stuff off at the high school, and the volunteer forum has also closed. Tickets went on sale for the fall musical this past weekend. Into the Woods opens in a month. The NHS trick-or-treating canned goods event is coming up soon. We'll go around to many houses in Holliston, and it's one of the biggest collections of canned goods for the Holliston Food Pantry all year.
In terms of clubs, the Holliston Environmental Club is building a pool for the ducks in the courtyard, with more to come.
Seniors have their senior pictures due tomorrow, and their baby pictures due November 7th, and the yearbook club is hard at work producing the yearbook.
Senior Jay Patel just published a book called Money Bleeds, The Cost of Silence, about how economics helped shape his mindset and overcome mental challenges.
The class officers for the freshman year have been selected.
And then finally, we are sending out feedback forms for student opinion on the new DSB rules and school start and end times, trying to get some statistics for that. Yeah, that's all. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Comments from school committee members. Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for attending town meeting on Monday. It's really great that we live in such a civically engaged community. Specifically, thank you to everyone, and I think the vote was unanimous for supporting our schools. I don't think it's fair that our students, staff, and educators have to work in an environment where it could rain on them. So, it's really important, and I look forward to seeing the project get underway to repair the roof.
I totally agree with that. Great town involvement. Won't repeat what Joe said. Ditto. Just to call out, I want to ask her tomorrow. I was looking forward to that at Rams.
Nothing for me. Nothing for me.
Well, I was going to talk about town meeting, but
Ditto. That was great, Joe.
always a fun time. But thank you, everyone, for coming out. We came out to support our Capital Press. We are definitely making great strides towards maintaining our buildings, and hopefully a lot more to come.
And no additional comment. I'm all set. So I don't know. I don't think we have any public comment tonight. Is there anyone on the Zoom that would like to speak? No. Okay, with that, I think we will continue on to our presentation, which is, we're going to start with the elementary.
And I'm sorry, everybody, if you could move down to the microphones. I'm sorry. Yep.
Your name tags are there, though.
Right, yeah. I didn't realize.
Yes, someone reach out from the community tonight. If you are speaking, you could move the you're good.
Okay.
You don't need a microphone. But if you are speaking, you can move the microphone to, yeah.
Once in a while, people say, can you speak?
No,
up?"
you're fine. Dan is the microphone.
So this is now our part two. We did, as you recall, at the last meeting, we had our data and assessment presentation followed by school goals for the district at middle school and high school. And this is part two with our two elementary schools. And I think you know them all, but we'll have them introduce themselves as they speak.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Slaney. I'm your Placentino principal.
Cheryl Cordero, the assistant principal.
Dave Kine, Principal, Miller.
Brenda Morrow, assistant principal at Miller.
All right, so we're going to start at Placentino. And I think you heard from Mrs. Manning and Mr. List and Dr. Kuska about how we're really all focusing on MTSS, which is the multi-tiered systems of supports. And I think that Dr. Kuska talked about the drivers around leadership, data, instruction, and family partnerships. So when we think about making sure every student succeeds, we're not just talking about academics. We're talking about behavior. We're talking about social emotional success. We're talking about being able to come to school and have access. So we're thinking about that whole piece when we think about MTSS. And at Placentino, all of our goals are really embedded around MTSS. I know there's a lot of words on this page, and I apologize for it, but we're doing a lot of things. So I'm just going to talk briefly about this slide. So when we think about communication practices, we're still using our social media platforms to try to tell the story at Placentino. We're still having our newsletters that are going out that Mrs. Cordero really authors them and gets them out to our families to make sure they know what's going on. Our classrooms are still communicating at least every other week. We encourage weekly around what's going on in their classrooms. But when we think about communication practices, this is the clear, consistent communication that is the foundation of MTSS. It ensures that families, educators, and students, they work together and they understand how we're going to support every child's growth. So when we think about communication this year, we're working on having and building consistent and transparent communication across all tiers of MTSS. So in Tier 1, having families know what's happening in the classroom with curriculum, how they can support their children at home. Within the school, having teachers being able to communicate so that we are all on the same page of what we're teaching. When we're thinking about Tier 2 and Tier 3, this is where we're talking about how do we support all students and how do we help communicate among our staff members of how to be able to support them by looking at data, being able to communicate data, but also around how do we support our families whose students are getting interventions so that they know what's happening in those interventions, how they know how they can support and what progress they're making. So something that I'm going to talk a little bit later is in our student success team, and I think Mrs. Morrow and Mr. Keim will talk about that as well. We changed the name of it, first of all, from student assistance team to student success team because we really want every child who's discussed to be able to come out with the idea and the goal that they're going to be successful. So one major piece that's a change to our process, Mrs. Morrow actually designed almost like a letterhead that's going to go onto all of our meeting notes to remind us of which driver of MTSS we're talking about. So we'll be using that at Placentino and at Miller. But when every child who's get brought up to our student success team, our teachers are going to leave not just with a list of things to try or data to collect. It's going to be an action step goal. It's going to be measurable. We're going to be able to come back in 4 to 6 weeks. Did they meet it? What do we need to do? That piece. So it's going to be, that communication is going to be very clear. When we think about MTSS, our families, they know about interventions, they know about curriculum, but we're going to do a little bit more education about what MTSS is. So in our family newsletters, we're going to send short, manageable little bites to let our families know what's happening there. When we talk about social well-being, when students feel safe, seen, supported, they're ready to learn and connect and thrive. We're going to be still focusing on ruler and PBIS, creating emotionally safe environments using those strategies. For Tier 1, we've been working with Jeriel and the May Institute. Cheryl's been working a lot with them to create lessons, to build off the lessons that our teachers have already built. We have our PBIS structures, we have our CARE structures, and we have Ruler. And how does it all come together? So making sure that we are explicitly teaching those routines across our school so that when students move from grade to grade, classroom to classroom, it's the same language. For Tier 2, we are embedding goals, social emotional goals, when a child comes to our student success team or when they are receiving Tier 2 interventions. What measurable goal are we hoping that our students are going to be able to meet, and what supports do our teachers need? We're going to be partnering with our families to extend our social emotional language and strategies into the home. These are the words that the emotions your children are learning, those emotion words. These are the strategies. These are the way that they're learning how to regulate their bodies and things that they can help at home. Teaching and learning, that's what we really think of for MTSS, but we're really focusing on using data and evidence practices to meet every learner where they are. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but how do we strengthen our Tier 1 and 3 instruction through data-driven decision-making? We've made a lot of strides in this area. We're using a lot of progress monitoring tools, and we're going to be looking at how to increase our progress monitoring for our students both in math and reading, and then what to do with that data. How are we going to get our teachers, our families, all the different members of the team to be able to really know what's happening and how to support our students. We're going to continue with professional development for using targeted data to change and target instruction. And like I said, we're going to have those measurable outcomes of our student success team, which is going to help us know, is what we're doing working? Does a child need an increased dose? Do we need to maybe move to an evaluation to see if there's a specific learning disability or a disability that we need to support them? But we want to do all those other things before we get that. We want to help it within that tier. Talent and resources. When you think about MTSS, when we invest in people and we align our resources, it builds our collective capacity to help all of our students be successful. So when we think about this year, when we're thinking about talent and resources, we're thinking about systems and process and communication and how we can build capacity across our staff and make sure that we're able to give all of our students equitable access to those supports, regardless of what program they're in and regardless of what grade they're in. So that's what we're really focusing on for talent and resources. So a strong MTSS framework starts with access. If a student's not there, they're not able to access it. So Mrs. Cordero is going to share with you some of our data and practices and goals around attendance.
So I have some great news to share in our absenteeism, which, you know, for a few years we weren't able to say that, and so it's great to be able to say that now. And I actually updated the graphic on the bottom because we went a little deeper into our years of data to really give you a better picture of where we were to where we are now. So as you can see, comparing chronic absenteeism over the last 3 years, including this year, we used October 15th as a measuring point for each of the years. And those statistics, 12% in 2023, 10.3 in 2024, and this school year we're at 6.5% for chronic absenteeism. So it's quite remarkable, and it's really a testament to everything that our school is doing as a whole. Families are hearing communication about attendance. They're receiving their monthly attendance reports, so they're able to monitor that on a regular basis. As you can see from the graphic down below, we are back to pre-pandemic numbers for our attendance, which was hard to even imagine a few years ago. When you can see back in 2022, we're at a 22.6% chronic absenteeism rate, and this is state data, so last year we were at 11.6, and so our target goal for this school year is to be down to 10%. So we want to keep lowering that number, and based on our trends, I think we can do that. And one of the ways that we're reaching that goal, or potentially our goal, is by not only is our parent communication, and we're talking about it at faculty meetings, but we also talk about it at our weekly sync meeting, which is a meeting with our school counselors, our school psychologists, administration, to really talk about students' needs and concerns across our building. And attendance is a major factor of things that we discuss and delve deep into to determine, is there a barrier to this child getting here? You know, it could be transportation that we're not aware of. It could be so many different variables. So if we make those contacts and reach out, sometimes we learn, you know, some very basic things that we can help with. On the next slide, tardies is another piece. So we want our students to be here on time and ready to learn, because when you can start your day with the whole class in a little bit of a slower move into the day, instead of you're late, you're rushing into your class, and it feels, you know, you don't feel as calm. So over the last few years, we've done a great job. As you can see, our tardies are decreasing, and our goal this year is to decrease it by another 15%. And we did a nice drop the year before. I think it was about 25%. We are on trend with, even with the new school start times, you can see that our tardies this year, they're right on par with where they've been previous years to start. And what you'll notice in that top graphic is you see a quick distinction between the gray line and the light to green line. We started a pilot at Placentino with some automated contacts home to families to let them know that their child was tardy that day. And the data shows the impact of those phone calls. We started to see a drastic reduction in those tardies, because sometimes parents just didn't realize that their kids were, you know, those couple minutes really add up to their school day. So that we have seen a wonderful addition to our numbers on that.
If I might just for a second, because I think that you made a very important point, though, and I think the community should know is our tardies and absenteeism is down still significantly, despite the significant change in start times.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying this is
Yeah, we're like
great news.
because there was concern as we were going through this that
Yeah.
moving those kids to such an early start time
Yeah.
would have an issue. And what we're seeing is that the data is now saying that.
And we're going to
And
close
I've,
them on.
I've actually worked at a school that had these similar start times, and our kids were awake and ready to learn, and you know, and that's what we're seeing now. So I personally didn't have that concern that a lot of our community did, because I'd lived it before, and it's great to see that in action this year, that we're not seeing any impact.
And I love it that it's in numbers.
Yeah, you can actually see it, right?
And then real quick, just for my own knowledge and community, tardies represent non-school bus lateness related tardies?
Yes, if your bus is late because of traffic or something like that, you're not tardy. You were not, you were on your bus. It's like the car drop-offs, that sort of thing, yeah.
And many times, people will benefit from that if a school bus is late, because everything is later, so we hold attendance altogether.
Got it.
Yeah, for instance, like yesterday with the lovely
Rain.
rain that we had, that some of us are still drying out from, we held attendance about 5 minutes because we knew traffic was, you know, delayed and things like that. So we try to also be, you know, human beings about it too, when we know it's an impact to everybody.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. So with stronger attendance and engagement, students are better positioned to grow academically. In the next few slides, we're going to talk about our MTS framework and how we're using this data to strengthen teaching and learning in both literacy and math. So in the area of math, last year we really focused on number sense, and this year we are focusing on algebraic thinking. So when we think about algebraic thinking, this is the foundation of our K-2 students. They're learning patterns and relationships and how numbers work together. They're beginning to recognize number patterns, understanding symbols, explaining how to solve problems, and all this is teaching them reasoning and flexibility to help them with algebra down the road. I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to hop ahead for 1 second. So I wanted to show you this. So if you look at the top, this is the same cohort of students. Okay, so on the top, this is end of year of kindergarten, and then this was on the bottom, it's beginning of the year of grade 1. So for the most part, unless we had students move out or move in, the same set of students. And you might look at this and go, oh my goodness, they decreased. So I just want to really stress that iReady is not like MCAS. Okay, so MCAS is given the same time of year. It's looking at, mostly it's towards the end of the year. Sometimes we wish that we get more content in on MCAS that is being covered. But what's really important is this: when we look at iReady, it's looking at the skills that they're going to learn in the grade that they're entering. Okay, so I think it's really important when you look at our data that we know, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. We know where our students now need to go. And we use this data to see, what do our students already have as strengths, but where we really need to work. So, nope, I want to just talk about this one a little bit. So when we think about algebraic thinking, the vast majority of our kindergartners, 71%, were placed at one grade level below. What that means is they're like at the beginning entering of kindergarten. They don't have those skills. For first grade, 60% were placed one grade level below, with a total of 33 that were already at grade or above. And then grade 2, we have 47% in the beginning of the year testing one grade level below, but 43% were already at or above grade level. So we can tell that the work that we did last year with number sense in first grade is already supporting that algebraic thinking in second grade. That these aren't standards that they've been taught yet, but they're already having a strong foundation. So that's really encouraging of the work that we're doing.
So, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
so when you say the one grade level below, that means they are, as first graders, it's not that they are performing as kindergartners, but they just haven't met the first grade skills that they haven't been taught yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Because when I look at this graph, it looks
Scary.
very concerning. But
Absolutely. So that's why I showed you that last slide first, because I wanted you to see that as they learn the standards, that's where they grow. And it's a different data point than in MCAS or that piece. So.
And that's why
End of
it's
the
nice.
year, though, this should be flipped.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why it's
And I
nice
will
we're giving
hopefully
it
show you
3
that reverse
times a
slide.
year.
Yep, okay.
Right. We want to see that growth. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So where are we going? We want by the end of the year for 80% of our students to be at or above grade level and all of our students to make at least one level of growth. Students who begin the grade level, who are already above grade level, we want them to not only maintain that status, but when we look at their growth profile, we want to make sure that they're having growth too. So we don't want our students who are above grade level just to remain stagnant. We want their growth percentiles to grow as well. So we're going to be continuing our specific math PD for our teachers around number sense and algebraic thinking. We designed a goal for our educators. It's optional if they want to choose it, but we found is that what we do is we write optional goals, educator goals, both professional and student learning goals for our teachers, and say, hey, if you want to use these, they're here for you, and this is the PD we're going to be providing, so it will support these goals. And usually about 80% of our educators actually adopt those goals, so it helps kind of build and support our school-wide goal. So we're doing it around modeling with math. It's a math practice standard that we're having our teachers really think about how we can intentionally use hands-on materials that at our young age of our students, they need to be touching manipulatives almost in every single math problem so that they can build more of a concrete understanding. They don't have that abstract understanding yet, and in order to get to abstract thinking, they need to move through that process. So we're going to be doing lots of PD on that. We're going to continue the use of iReady. So Frank, like you said, hopefully throughout the year, we're seeing those numbers flip over to green and blue. And we're focusing on number sense and algebraic thinking data from our diagnostics. Okay, so now moving to literacy. This data is from Dibbles. So this is our beginning of the year, and just to kind of orient you to this chart, we look at predominant measure for our students. So in kindergarten, that's letter naming fluency. In grade 1, that's nonsense word fluency, correct letter sounds. And in grade 2, that's oral reading fluency, words correct per minute. So Dibbles, and some of these change throughout the year, which get a little their predominant measure, but that's what they feel is the most important indicator for how a student is doing is that measure at that grade and that age. So our kindergartners right now, 31% are coming in the intensive support category, while 53 are already at the grade level. So that is really great, to be honest with you. We're actually seeing that is an increase of what we've been seeing with our kindergartners coming in. So that's pointing to we might be moving past some of that pandemic piece with that they're accessing that learning. Grade 1, a total of 77% of our students are at core or above, so that's incredible. That shows the work that our kindergarten did with our students. And we actually saw a huge jump from end of the year to the beginning of the year, so we're trying to figure out what everyone did over the summer, but it was really incredible. And then in grade 2, we have 36% of our students in that intensive support and 64% at or above. So what we're going to focus on is zones of growth, because we feel that if we just focused on students that were proficient or above, our numbers are already pretty good in those areas. What we really want to focus on is that every student is making growth. So a zone of growth, we will designate for students if we think that they should be making average growth, if they have to make above average growth. So for instance, what we found was some of that are students that were already at grade level or above. When we actually looked at their growth profiles, it wasn't as high as we wanted it to be. We need them to continue moving as well. We want to be able to measure, and we can specifically measure if an intervention is working, so we can do that by setting specific growth target goals in different areas that they're working on. So this is going to help us do that. So by the end of the year, we want 80% of our students to meet their zones of growth goal. How do we get there? We get there by using that data to create flexible and groups that are very specifically targeted on their needs. We're going to progress monitor for students who are not meeting their goals every 2 to 4 weeks, and then having that data, having teachers look at that data, changing what we're doing if they're not making progress. Having data meetings with all of our staff at least 3 times a year, and then more frequently with our interventionists, and then of course continue our professional learning. So that's it for Placentino. Questions? No, they're not.
Yeah, tell me which one.
Algebraic thinking, I already results.
Oh, I knew you were going to like
This
that
one?
Okay.
I was just going to say, yeah, I don't know, but, so I'm really curious about what this looks like at the teacher or classroom level for planning. So like as teachers look at this and they see, okay, I've got kids in the red who have skill gaps, kids in the yellow that are ready for grade level instruction, and kids in the green who have mastered some of the grade level content and may be ready for more. How do they take that information and, or what are they doing right now to use that to plan for instruction?
Yeah. So what we're working with is using the lessons that tier 1 lesson that all students are getting, and how to build access points into those lessons. So like I said, we already had a professional development from ALN. They came in and talked about how to use more, how to model more with math for students. So for instance, like if we have a student who's in the lower end of yellow or red, and they're really concrete, they have no abstract thinking of that piece, how they can have those students really use manipulatives in that piece. We break it down into smaller pieces for them, and maybe they're just doing kind of that first part of the lesson, but hearing the whole piece so they're still having access to it. Our teachers are doing small group math with our with our students who need that piece, and also how can we we're Kristen Marino, she's our fabulous STEM person. She also does a number sense assessment with each of our students. So that's shared as well of what do they need to be able to do to be able to support building their number sense. And she's helped build activities for them to be able to do that's either like after their, what's that part of the lesson called? The launch. The launch, after the launch piece that they're able to do. But we're also really trying to utilize MyPath and iReady so that that is customized to where the student is to help them learn.
All right, ready for
You
Miller?
ready? Here we go. All right. Hi, everybody. How are you? So we changed ours up a little bit this year. We wanted to focus on each goal, then we're going to dive into the data. Just briefly going over our goals, we want to strengthen our communication as well. We want to be consistent. We want to make sure our communication is multilingual, and we're communicating attendance, behavior, and academics to the families. How do we do that? As Cheryl, Brenda sends out a weekly email to family, and it's both, she does a voiceover on it, and she also puts out an email form of it, so they can either listen or they can read it. We also send out our monthly communication on attendance. In a few weeks, both schools will be communicating with families our new report card and what that looks like. It's going to be a new standards-based report card. We've been working on it for about a year now, and we're going to roll it out in December when the new report card's coming out. So we'll be sending out communications to families so that they know how to access it, read it, understand it. We're also working with our teachers on that as well. How do you report out on a standards-based report card? So some of our PD that we're doing this upcoming November is looking at that, creating new rubrics. How do we understand that? And so we'll be communicating that out. We're always trying to improve our translations with families who come to us with different languages. We actually, the other day, had a great MLL night where we had families came in, we had a dinner, we linked it to our Unified Arts Night so that we could get more people to the Unified Arts Night, but families who often would not access the Unified Arts Night, meeting their specialist teachers, and it was a great evening for all. I'm going to jump over now to our SEL PBIS ruler. We're really trying to improve how we're reaching all of our students at Miller. As Jamie said, we are ensuring all of our meetings have the MTSS domains and focus areas. We changed our PBIS over to CARE this year. We were RISE, and before that we were SHINE, but now we are doing the same as Placentino and Adams. This year, we worked with the May Institute to provide extension lessons for our ruler curriculum that we rolled out last year, and so that is work that's being rolled out as we speak. We had Victoria Briggs come to our meeting and work with our staff on de-escalation strategies for all of our students. If you see a student in the hallway, we all carry, this little picture cue on, it might not be a student that you work with, but how do you work with a student who might be dysregulated at the time? Wait time or, prompting things, but it just gives you a little reminder of some strategies that you might use, even if you're not familiar with a particular student. We are continuing to monitor and support our attendance, and we'll talk about that later with some of our attendance data. And we are continuing to work with our student advisory committee. Next. As Jamie talked about the MyPath just a minute ago, we had data at the end of the year last year that our students who used MyPath more did better. And so we are encouraging, we are monitoring how often our students are using the MyPath during the year. We are sending out email reminders about which classrooms are using it and that sort of thing, so that we are really trying to get our teachers to use that because we saw proof in the success that it had. We're also, we've got our literacy review that's happening. We've got our multilingual curriculum review that is happening. We had 19 students this year that came to us that we have success plans for multilingual learners who had zero growth on their access test. So we have already identified those students. We've met with the teachers. We've met with the specialists to see how do we support those students early so that we can see success over the year. And these plans used to not come out until like November and December, and we're like, no, that can't happen. These are our most vulnerable students, and we've got to do better at making sure that they have access to that. We are in our second year of the Eureka Math Squared, so year one implementation, year two, we're still going to see a little bit of that implementation gap. That first year, it's kind of a struggle to get through the curriculum. This year, we're well on our way. Teachers have, and our STEM, Ashley Bouchard, we're narrowing down what we don't need to necessarily get into and how do we speed up but make sure the students are getting what they need with the curriculum. You talked about what are we doing with some of those. We're working with the students who are struggling during the WIN time. We're helping teachers create menus of things that the students can do during that time. They may have reading things that they may need to work on, but they also may have math things that they may need to work on. So it's having that balance between the week. If they're not being pulled out for Tier 2 support, what are we doing in the classroom to provide those supports? And some of the PD we did last year was creating these menus of activities that you can do to support the students during that time if they're struggling in certain areas. And let's just go.
Can we stay on that just for 1 second? I just wanted to make sure to point out the goal statement that's on the slide because it directly links to a lot of what Placentino shared in terms of their percentages and growth and what their expectations are to show some alignment. So I'm just going to read this goal statement and the measurable outcome just so that we can see the connection. So at Miller School, we'll ensure all students have access to high-quality instruction and targeted supports across academic areas. And our measurable outcome that we will be committed to doing is by June 2026, all students will make progress towards their growth targets in math and literacy, with 80% of students meeting or exceeding their targets, as measured by iReady and other district assessments. Special attention will be given to the following domains of numbers and operations, informational text, and writing. And we'll talk about why in the data conversation, but just holding on to that idea of 80. And the reason why 80 is there is because last year we had students in the same measuring of either meeting or exceeding their growth targets. We had students at 60%. So we want to raise the amount of students that are meeting their typical growth.
And we picked numbers and operations and informational text because we found that through iReady, those were weaknesses. And we picked writing because when we look at our MCAS results, writing was poor across the board. And so those were why we're focusing on those specific items there. And then our last goal, Miller will build and refine school systems and support staff collaboration, clarity, and consistency. We're updating our handbooks to reflect the current practices. We are creating and utilizing a substitute handbook when substitutes, we don't have a lot of them, but when they come, right? When they come in, we want them to be able to, get a Chromebook, be able to log in under the teacher and be able to use their Google Classroom. Exactly, when they're just not handing it over.
Personal service for the one. And when we're subbing, we use it too.
And, we want to continue to use our school climate survey to monitor key factors in what's going on into the school for teacher satisfaction. So we're going to get into the data now and where we are with all of that.
So I am not, the intention of the data conversations is not to make us feel like we are in a pit of despair, because we're not, but we just want to surface the data that helps us know there's a priority in a certain area. So there are lots of celebrations about who our students are and the growth that they've shown, but we are pointing out the areas that need work. So I just want to frame that before we start digging in. So we've been working with our grade leaders, our curriculum team, our support team, special educators, and general educators to review our spring 2025 MCAS results and our beginning of year benchmark data to identify goals and priorities for our school, the goals that Mr. Keim just reviewed. And I'm going to share some of the analysis we've done that has informed our goals related to strengthening Tier 1 instruction, monitoring all students in all subgroups, and ensuring that all students and families have support when students are having challenges attending school. The first set of data on this slide summarizes the areas of the MCAS accountability where we declined, which means we performed below the target the state set for us and for our students, which is not what we want for our students. One theme we see is the achievement, growth, and chronic absenteeism has declined for students with disabilities. This subgroup is a priority in our goals. Their attendance is monitored weekly to ensure interventions are in place when needed, and we are working closely with all educators to identify tech and non-tech ways to remove barriers for students in the classroom. A special thank you to Allie Curley for her leadership on the tech side. Another theme we see in the decline is the decline of our multilingual learner students on their progress towards English proficiency, which Mr. Keim mentioned briefly on one of our goal slides. This is measured by the access test that's given in January. And so we had a decrease from 53.6% rate of progress to 33.3% rate of progress this year. We have worked since then, and knowing in anticipation that we were not feeling confident with the growth before we even saw this data, we built some teams to start the year that really allowed us to align our practices and get more brains in the work so that we could be sure we carried these kids through and make sure that they would show growth. So we've worked with our ESL teachers, our support team, our student success team, as Jamie mentioned, rebranded, and our classroom teachers to build comprehensive targeted success plans for 19 students, the 19 students that Dave mentioned, not making progress. We're also integrating the curriculum resource Imagine Learning, which is an online resource for our foundational multilingual learners, which gives them the chance to learn in their native language, which we can't provide otherwise because we don't have the language capacity. So we can program it to start a lesson in Portuguese. It's aimed on helping them learn how to speak English and learn all of the nuances, but they get the instruction in Portuguese and can practice in English. So it's just an added piece to grow that proficiency. And we're also, as Dave mentioned, forming a district-wide multilingual curriculum review so that we can get together and figure out even more issues and solve them together. So that's the first data set that I'm sharing as ways that we've incorporated, and then you're going to talk about attendance.
So our data, we're showing ours a little bit differently. We've got the accountability data from the state where Placentino doesn't have that data because they don't have the MCAS score and they're not tracked that way. So an area that we saw significant, where we were really low and we really honed in on, was our multilingual learners the year prior. They had declined significantly, but last year they met their target. And so that is something that's good to highlight there. But there are some areas that declined that we are worried about. Our high needs students, our students with disabilities, our Hispanic and Latino families, and our multi-race families all declined. And so those are, areas where we are going to focus on this year. But we also talked at the end of the year last year, when we look at attendance, some of our students who may be on IEPs or high needs may not want to come to school because school is hard for them. And so how do we change that narrative where they want to come to school and they want to learn? And that's something that we've got to try and figure out. What's on the right is what we send to staff weekly in letting them know how we're targeting the attendance. The top part looks at, the chronically absent students, and we talk about these students weekly at our student assistant support team. And thank you, I know, student support team. And if we've got students, okay, they weren't even here the first 5 days of school because they were still on vacation. We may track those guys out. That person had tonsillitis. They were out for 5 days. We know about that one. But there might be others that we're worried about because we don't have a story. And so we do talk about who's going to contact the family to try and figure that out. The next one in the middle is our multilingual learners, the families that we were focusing in on last year, and how are they doing? And you can see a significant improvement there. And then at the bottom, one of the ones where we want to focus on this year are our students on IEPs, and you can see I've got 5 that are up there in having absences, and we've got to figure out why. Why is that occurring? And as Placentino showed, at the beginning of the year, this year, our attendance is up. We are not seeing, a majority of the students out.
And just to clarify the chronically absent, like the students that are named chronically absent in the middle part of that graph, they aren't truly chronically absent. They've been out for the amount of 10% of the amount of days we've been in school. So it's not like that's a true number, but we track it because 2 absences a month can lead to being chronically absent. So that's why it's important for us to look at it. There is a student that's already at 18 though, and there's a story to it. So we're not concerned. We're concerned because we want them in school, but we know why. So just to point that out as well. So related to the ELA standard priorities for the MCAS, we reviewed priority areas related to English language arts, math, and science standards that were measured on the MCAS to identify the greatest need for both all of our students and students with disabilities, given the information we already shared about students with disabilities, to really look closely at the student experience. We also looked at the standards because they will help us prepare for the implementation of our new standards-based report card. So it will help us gain clarity related to that as well. So you'll notice that in all grades 3 through 5 and in both populations, our lowest standard area was writing. This is measured by the percentage of points we received for these specific tasks. If we look at grade 3, students could receive up to 4 points for questions related to this standard, and students earned 22% of the possible points they could earn, which is less than 1 point on average. And so that's how to read the chart, but just knowing that the outcome is that this is a priority area for all of our grades in ELA. We're integrating writing into the grade level student learning goals and developing strategy lessons taught at all grade levels to address this. A special thank you to Caitlin Kinsky, our humanities specialist, for her leadership in this work. We are also engaging in a comprehensive elementary ELA curriculum review and identifying other content areas to intentionally embed writing. So it doesn't rely just on the literacy block to strengthen this, it's cross-content. Moving on to math, you do not see the same consistent areas for each grade like you did in ELA. In grade 3, perimeter recognition is a focus area in both all students and students with disabilities, which kind of lends itself to thinking about possibly strengthening tier 1 because it's seen in both the subgroup and all students. In grade 4, fractions is a primary need for all students, and geometry is a focus for students with disabilities. And in grade 5, geometry is a focus for all students, and measurement conversions is a focus for students with disabilities. So each grade level is addressing these needs through their curriculum development. For example, noting the need for review and revision of fractions for our incoming grade 5, last year's grade 4, students in the curriculum scope and sequence as a focus during win time when needed. We are also using our benchmark data to identify students who need targeted support during our WIN block, whether it's from the classroom teacher, an interventionist, or a specialist. We recognize that some of these domains received less attention last year due to the placement in the scope and sequence and the implementation of our new math program, and our summer curriculum work has addressed much of this issue. So we're hopeful that this year that will be corrected. Related to science, technology, and engineering, which is only assessed in grade 5, our grade 5 students performed above the state in the physical science standard that's identified as a focus area here, but this standard received the lowest percent of possible points for all students and for students with disabilities, so we look at it as a focus area. Our team is working with our talented and resourceful STEM specialist, Ashley Bouchard, to look more closely at the curriculum to identify ways to enhance content. And in addition, we're being very intentional about the kinds of enrichment experiences brought in for students, like yesterday's Energy Academy performance for grade 5 students, where students learned about renewable and non-renewable energy and how to use energy in our daily lives. We're also bringing in the Discovery Museum, thanks to our PTO, over the course of the year to provide standards-aligned lessons to each class in each grade. Finally, I will quickly review the iReady benchmark data in reading and math school-wide. While I don't have this data available by subgroup like we did for MCAS, we have created report groups in iReady that allows us to pull that data in that fashion, and we are already monitoring this data weekly to ensure students are progressing towards their individualized learning target. Across all grades in reading, informational text comprehension is the clearest common priority. In addition to looking more closely at our curriculum and instruction in this area, we're prioritizing student usage of iReady's online instruction called MyPath that was mentioned previously, both in reading and math, because it provides individualized learning experiences for students. We encourage students to use MyPath 30 minutes per week in each content area and attain a pass percentage of 70% or higher, which has a direct correlation to meeting growth goals over time. And as Mr. Keim mentioned before, we do publish that information, not with student information, but just our pass percentages and usages each week, so staff are all on the same page about where we're headed. As you can see, our focus area for mathematics is numbers and operations, and weaknesses in this area can create barriers in algebraic thinking, geometry, and measurement. So that aligns with what we were talking about with our MCAS data earlier. Our interventions in Tier 1 focus will emphasize place value, fractions and decimal sense, operations fluency, and we will closely monitor student progress by reviewing the MyPath usage, unit assessments, observational notes, and formative assessments like exit tickets. In addition, the iReady diagnostic at the middle and end of year will help us monitor student achievement and growth in the standards identified through MCAS and focus domains in iReady. That's it for Miller.
So Hillary, one of the things you talked about over at, at Placentino, how do we use that grouping? iReady will do a classroom grouping and will help you, build groups in your classroom and give you ideas of what to do with those groups. And so we are still getting our teachers up to where they need to be in utilizing that data, but iReady does do that for them.
Where is the iReady usage? Is it coming from the math time during the school day, or is it in addition to the direct instruction from the teacher in the math time?
It could be when they walk in the door. It could be during their WIN time. It could be during instruction after they've finished something in the classroom. So, they're trying to figure out where to get that in.
And also in small group instruction, it could be a learning station for that.
And in grade 5, because they do take them home, it could be at home.
Okay, that was my next question. Is it just grade 5 that has access to it?
Grade 5 is the only ones right now that take their Chromebooks home.
But they could the younger grades plus new as well have access to it with the shared
They can access it through Clever at home, but not on their own device.
We just encourage parents to help them get on, not solve. I know that sounds silly, but it does impact their path when it's not their thinking, and it's just really well-intentioned families that are trying to help them. But then we notice they struggle on their path when they're on school, and we have to kind of readjust a little bit.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry. With the MyPath, one of the goals was to increase the amount of time on MyPath. That's at school, though. We're not
It could be
expecting family.
either.
It could be either one.
Especially fifth grade. Fifth grade may assign it as homework. You know, make sure you do 10 minutes tonight, because the goal is 30 minutes per week. So they could assign some of it. Yeah.
Going back to the attendance targets and current data, so I'm understanding, the top left,
Yeah.
is that 2024 rate based on full year or year to date of last year?
It's the state, that was what was published by the state last year, so a full year.
Oh, okay, so-
Yeah,
so-
so the 2023-2024 school year, and
Got
then
it.
the 2024-2025 is the second column.
Sorry, so 24 is full year, 25 is current year?
So the first column is year 2023-2024 school year.
Got it.
Second column is 2024-2025 school year.
So last year? Last year.
Last
So the
Yeah.
last 2 years.
So we don't have the data that we shared in addition on the slide that is on the right.
Yep.
That is our current data. We track it through Open Architect. The state won't have our chronic absenteeism accountability information until next summer, fall.
Okay.
So it takes a year for us to,
Yep.
but we try to just monitor it in real time so that we're ahead of it and putting interventions in place to support kids.
And I'm guessing the data from last year and the year before are kind of pointing you in the right
Yes.
direction in terms of what groups to really
Yes.
dive deep into.
It fed our focus on multilingual last year because we knew that was a big concern, and so we use this data to inform, not to let other students slide because we review all students, but we are very intentional. We're also adding all the students on success plans. We're adding them like starring if they show up on attendance, because that's another piece to make sure they have access. And the state will send us a target for our attendance in all other areas of accountability. I think it's usually in February. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we get something in our Dropbox that tells us like what is going to be our target for the summer by the end of the year, and so we use that as well. But we can anticipate from the targets that are here, what they set for us this year, that they're going to increase the target or decrease in attendance. They're going to decrease it in every subgroup.
And I think that's where we have found Open Architect really helpful,
Yeah.
because now we can look at kids that maybe weren't struggling in the last 2 years, and all of a sudden you see a decline in real time, and now you need to dig in because that kid was never in that situation before.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't have accountability data like this at pre-K to 2.
Exactly.
I appreciate you highlighting the areas that you're digging deeper into, because when I looked at your data, there's a lot of celebrations.
Yes.
I mean, fifth grade math was just amazing.
Yes.
And a lot of other areas too. But one area you're talking about is the multilingual learners, and I see that's an area you're drilling down deeper based on their attendance and their access scores. So a challenge with access, as you know, is they take
When
the
it is.
assessment in January. You don't get the data till May. So as you're thinking about monitoring their language acquisition throughout the year, what are you using that's more timely and actionable?
So the success plans, now I know it's only for 19 students, and there are other students who are showing progress in their English proficiency, so it's not quite as an involved process for them as they're going through their learning. But we have set specific targets and measures in those success plans, and when we built them with the ESL teachers and our student success team, so the members of our team that talk about all students who may come to the table who need some kind of intervention, whether it's from the teacher or otherwise. So they're all on board. Our speech and language are aware of the speaking goals that certain students have and gave us feedback. But there's measures within that in December we're doing another all-call meeting with the teachers and to review the students' progress on those success plans. So it's not a specific tool that we're using, but it's more at this point because we're going to go through a curriculum review on all of the resources that we're using for our multilingual. It's probably going to be more of a work sample, and also leaning on some of the dibbles and other things that if we're focused on a specific skill related to that, that will help us. So it's not going to be a concrete tool measure that we're looking at, but more work samples to determine progress.
And one of the things you guys did for us is we increased from 1.0 FTEs to 1.5 FTEs, and we can definitely see the number of students that are getting the service that weren't getting it before. We can see that with I see them with the kids all the time.
So I noticed, I can't remember which slide it was, or if it was one of the attachments, but you noted that implementation of Eureka is a key action in your improvement plan. So I was wondering, what supports are the teachers receiving this year, and how are you monitoring the impact of Eureka? I think we're in year 2 or 3? Two, so still very early, yeah.
I think one of the things that we're working on is making sure everybody is consistent in what they're doing. The slides, there used to be big slide decks of what the Eureka comes with, and they've narrowed that down so it's more manageable for the classrooms. And so that manageability is part of some of that. They are now inputting their assessments online so that we're tracking them online. That data can also get into Open Architect, which will also help us to track the students per se. Again, we're early in this phase, and I think it's going to have to get through another year of going through it, but those are some.
Mm-hmm. And in addition, because again, we were identifying all of the needs of our special education subgroup as well in that data, and our special educators are working closely with Ashley Bouchard, our humanities, to look at modifications and accommodations and how to note that and interpret that. And there's been a little designated time. We need more time, but they're starting to have those conversations, because one thing that came out of last year's implementation was a challenge with that. How do we accommodate when we're learning the content at the same time as teaching it? So we're trying to identify times to allow for that to happen as well.
I also wanted to add, both of their STEM curriculum specialists have been doing a really nice job with working directly with teachers on a regular basis about Eureka and supporting them. So it's really nice to have those two people and those roles to go in there. So, and that's on a regular, ongoing basis. So.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.
So I know you've probably seen as we've been shifting and really trying to bring the data that that you've been asking for, but we also don't want to overdo the data. So let us know if you feel like adjustments would be helpful as we go into the mid-year report, because we'll be doing a mid-year and an end-of-year as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we move on to policy? I'm wondering, is Mr. List for the competency? All right, let's do that one first. Yeah.
Yeah, I can pull that up.
So we're going to do the competency determination policy first, so that you can not spend all night here, unless you choose to.
As I pull that up, can I just say one thing? Because when we wrapped policy the other day, last week, I didn't have. I received this week some language from Accept and Tech, some of our collaboratives that we work with, and they have done as a larger collaborative group a recommendation for students with disabilities within competency determination. So I just forwarded that to you, Hillary, today, so that I think we can still do the first reading, but then we would want to go back as before reading 2 and see if we need to adjust any of that. So I just wanted you to see that in your emails later.
Mr. List, do you mind just talking a little bit about why we have to do this policy?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the removal of MCAS as a graduation requirement, the state required each school district to come up with their own competency determination. This is different than graduation requirements, which is determined by each district as well. the competency determination was just passing the MCAS, which included the equivalency up to geometry and math, up to grade 10 English, and then biology and physics. So the state sent out the instructions to come up with our own competency determination that minimally met certain standards. And you can see throughout the policy here that it talks about the English requirements, the math requirements, science requirements, and then the state added U.S. history requirements as well to what we were required to do. This was a minimum and that they set, but most districts chose to keep the competency determination similar to what the MCAS tested for, and then use their graduation requirements to really lay out sort of the values of the district and what they believe students should be doing in order to graduate.
And this policy is based on kind of a draft of requirements or recommendations from the state, and then added onto based on Mr. List's recommendations. And when we get to the bottom, you'll see that there's a lot of discussion about different students who might have different pathways based on if they're a student with disabilities, multilingual learner, if they're entering Holliston after their freshman year, and how they might meet the competency determination. All right, so as a first read, I guess I get to read through this really long document.
If you get tired, we'll tag team. If you get tired, just say trade.
Okay. Well, there's one of 4 policies tonight. So.
All new. Okay.
Some.
I'm not volunteering.
I'll volunteer, so you should say trade.
Thank you. In addition to meeting the course requirements described in IKF graduation requirements, credit and subject-specific criteria, in adherence with the Massachusetts Education Reform Law of 1993, GLC 69-1D, all students must meet the competency determination standard in math, ELA, science, and beginning with the class of 2027, history, to determine a diploma in Massachusetts. New statute states, the competency determination shall be based on the academic standards and curriculum frameworks for 10th graders in the areas of mathematics, science and technology, history and social science, foreign languages and English, and shall represent a determination that a particular student has demonstrated mastery of a common core of skills, competencies, and knowledge in these areas by satisfactorily completing coursework that has been certified by the student's district as showing mastery of the skills, competencies, and knowledge contained in the state academic standards and curriculum frameworks in the areas measured by the MCAS high school tests described in Section 1, administered in 2023, and in any additional areas determined by the board. That was a really long sentence. For students in the class of 2026, a student who has earned their competency determination prior to January 3rd, 2025, in the areas of mathematics, English language arts, and science through a passing score on the MCAS subject tests or retests will be considered to have met the competency determination requirement in the relevant subjects. Beginning with the class of 2026, a determination of competency shall include satisfactory completion and full credit earned of relevant coursework aligned to the standards measured by the high school English language arts, mathematics, and science MCAS assessments administered in 2023. This includes the following: English 9 and English 10, Algebra 1 and Geometry, one of the following: physics, biology, or chemistry, 1 year of United States history, beginning with the class of 2027. Demonstrating a mastery of skills in English language arts, mathematics, and science in accordance with the district's grading policy on the final assessment, capstone, portfolio, or equivalent measure. Seniors in these courses are not exempt from the final assessment, capstone, portfolio, or equivalent measure, regardless of their overall course grade. All courses listed above are taught using standards from the current high school Massachusetts curriculum frameworks and are equivalent to the content and skills previously measured by the 2023 MCAS exam. Competency determination, ELA. Satisfactory completion of coursework requirements. Students may have earned their CD and ELA by passing the ELA MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025. If the student did not pass the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025, they are required to take the equivalent of 2 years of high school English language arts courses in grade 9 and 10. Mastery of skills through assessment or capstone portfolio. Students may have earned their CD and ELA by passing the ELA MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025. If the student did not pass the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025, they are also required to pass their final assessment, capstone portfolio, or equivalent measure. If a student fails their final assessment in English 9 and/or English 10, students will participate in a portfolio review of prior assessment data to determine if they have met 60% of the frameworks included in the summative assessment, portfolio, or equivalent measure. For math, students may have earned their CD by passing math MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025. If the student did not take the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025, they are required to take the equivalent of 2 years of high school math courses, algebra and geometry, in grades 9 and 10. Students may have earned their CD in math by passing the math MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025. If the student did not pass the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025, they are also required to pass their final assessment, capstone portfolio, or final assessment, or equivalent measure. If a student fails their final assessment in Algebra 1 and/or Geometry, students will participate in a portfolio review of prior assessment data to determine if they have met 60% of the frameworks included in the summative assessment, portfolio, or equivalent measure. Science. Students may have earned their CD in biology, chemistry, or physics by passing the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025. If the student did not take the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025, they are required to take and pass the equivalent of 1 year of any of the following disciplines: biology, physics, chemistry, or technology engineering. Students may have earned their CD in biology or chemistry or physics by passing the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025. If the student did not take the MCAS prior to January 3rd, 2025, students may take and pass their final assessment or capstone portfolio or equivalent measure. If a student fails their final assessment in biology or chemistry or physics, students may participate in a portfolio review of prior assessment data to determine if they have met 60% of the frameworks included in the summative assessment, portfolio, or they may attempt to earn their CD in science in their next sequential class. History, beginning with the class of 2027, the equivalent of 1 year of United States history. In addition, students must take and pass their final assessment or capstone portfolio. If a student fails their assessment in United States history, students may participate in a portfolio review of prior assessment data to determine if they have met 60% of the frameworks included in the summative assessment portfolio, or they may attempt to earn the CD in U.S. history by taking the next sequential class. Anyone else want to jump in? Thank you.
Students with disabilities. The Holliston School District must provide a free and appropriate public education to students with disabilities and must also determine that the student has met the competency determination and local graduation requirements prior to graduating that student. Students with disabilities who have been placed in out-of-district placements must meet the requirements of the competency determination policy of the placing school district. Discussion of the competency determination must be part of the IEP team's transition planning. English language learners. The Holliston School District shall, on a case-by-case basis, determine appropriate courses necessary for English language learners to both achieve language proficiency and meet the competency determination requirements. Late enrolling students. Students who enroll in a Massachusetts public school after their 9th grade year may be granted a determination of competency by the Holliston School District in one or more of the following ways: transcript review by school counselor and building administrator, additional course requirements as determined by school counselor and building administrator, meeting the standard for a substituted equivalent that the district satisfies the same academic standards. Current or former students not earning their competency determination may participate in the following appeals process. Students enrolled in the Holliston School District in the classes of 2003 through 2024 that did not earn a diploma due to not passing the MCAS may appeal the decision and request a transcript review to determine if they have met the competency determination requirement. Students enrolled in the Holliston School District in the class of 2025 and beyond may appeal the competency determination by participating in a transcript and portfolio review to determine if they have met the competency determination requirement. Exceptions to these graduation requirements, providing for individual student programs, may be secured by submitting a written request to the principal for disposition.
Could you just read it one more time, sorry?
Yeah. Did you miss part?
I love how they read it.
And why did that one part have or tech engineering? That was just in one part
So
of it.
there was a MCAS test. It used to be that you could pass physics, biology, chemistry, or tech engineering. Then they got rid of the tech engineering, and then they got rid of the chemistry. So it kind of just covers. It would be like if like one of the. It really covers if someone from 2007 wants an appeal. We could be like, oh, you passed the tech engineering MCAS, and that counts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it covers that 2003 to 2019 time.
Thank you.
That's why, yeah.
And
Before they got rid of that
refer
test.
to the class of 2025, now that there is no, the class of 2025 is.
So
They were the last.
it's for 2025. It's like if a kid didn't graduate last year, they could now request the portfolio.
So they're still technically the class of 2025?
It's more for someone who got a certificate of completion last year, because that then ends their time. They can continue on as the 18 to 22 program, but they get a certificate of completion. If they wanted a diploma, then they would request a review to see if they've met those the standards.
And this changes, this policy goes into effect as of January 3rd, and we're supposed to have it by December 31st. So I didn't apply for a waiver yet, because I feel like we should be able to meet that timeline, but just need to make sure we get it voted on and upload it.
But there's no vote tonight?
Just a first reading.
Yep.
Let AI read these things. Look, I'm serious, like, your computer just can read them out loud.
But if we're getting tight, we could waive the third reading if we needed to, so just depending on the timeline. With the holiday, I'm just thinking with the holidays and everything.
So next meeting will be second.
I didn't realize reading was like an actual reading.
Oh, we only have one meeting in November.
Welcome to yet another interesting feature of school committee.
Kane laws.
Right.
Any other questions about this policy?
No.
And next year we're going to get a new one. So.
Yeah.
The state, the group who's putting it together has to have a new one by next year. That's their piece. So
There's a graduation task force. I'm
whole
on the
thing,
think
so.
tank. I mean, there's just where the timeline was a little skewed and wasn't thought out well, unfortunately. So
I guess just, I know a lot of work went into this, but could you tell us a little bit about, was there feedback from high school teachers on it as well? Had they had a chance to review this? Or
it's not, so this is based off of basically what the
Desi gave a
state.
template.
Desi gave like a template. The things that we added in there are really the safeguards and the things like that about like that science, tech, and engineering that since 2003. Really, this is kind of we didn't really mess with it much. We just kind of aligned it to Holliston, really. So most districts are putting together something like this. Some are choosing to just write it out differently, but because we're changing it in a year.
yeah, and he's meeting with his principal groups, and I'm meeting with my superintendent roundtables. And tomorrow I have another follow-up with tech. So this is on that topic as well.
From assistant superintendent.
Yeah, they're basically all the
Trying to
same at
keep
this
it-
point
yeah.
because we spent hours on this, and we don't know what the state's going to put out next year. So.
Great. Thank you. Do you want to go to the social media policy next?
So this is an update to an existing policy.
Yes, so what happened is when we saw a lot of things happening after recent events with Charlie Kirk, and there were a lot of there were some dismissals of staff because of social media posts, I immediately reached out to Andy Warren and asked him to review our policy to see if it would be, if we had any similar issues, does our policy address it? And these are some of the changes that he recommended for us.
So, we need to read them, or?
I think they're really just the changes.
Just the changes you're required to, yeah.
So in the first paragraph, we added the line, while the district recognizes that employees retain First Amendment rights to communicate outside of work, employees should be thoughtful in how they communicate on matters of local, state, and national concern such that their communication do not disrupt the workplace. And then below that, there are some additional clarification bullets here, including all electronic contacts with students should be through the district's computer and telephone system, except in emergency situations. All contacts and messages by coaches and faculty advisors with team members should be sent to all team members, except for messages concerning medical or academic privacy matters, in which case the message will be copied to the appropriate administrator. And then later down, staff will not give out their private cell phone or home phone numbers without prior approval of the district. Pertinent content from coaches, faculty advisors, and other staff leaders that must be done via teachers' personal phone number should be sent to the whole group and must be school appropriate. So that was all language that was recommended by the district's lawyer.
So I have some concerns. What is an emergency situation? In E, we say you can't give out your phone number without prior approval, but then in F, we say, and here's the situation, so we're essentially pre-approving everything. I'd like to look into, I know a lot of club teams have an app for basically communicating with all of the members of the team. Is there a way we can, I don't know if it's cost prohibitive for us to look at, but I mean, I think, in essence, I don't think that teachers and staff should be communicating at all with students.
So this is actually a good point because we have a feature in Bright Arrow where the staff can actually chat with families through Bright Arrow. You're talking more about the student piece. So it's like for the parent piece, if they exclusively are communicating through that, it will cover that piece, but not the.
It seems like a lot of the issues are around sports, and I get that because they're the ones that are having to sort of set things up outside of.
We also have capacity within our Zoom phones for all staff to put the Zoom app and use a school-based phone number on their personal phone. I think it has the capacity. I'd have to check with Dan as far as texting as well.
Let's check that.
From
Yes,
that we then can track.
Yeah.
Yes,
So that
would solve if they're employed by us and have a Zoom account. It wouldn't solve coaches that are not a teacher or other staff member.
When I think about all the plays and things like that, same thing, like the directors are communicating too. So you need to think about their outside people.
And then the last question I had, sometimes I do think coaches communicate with the group of captains, perhaps, and not the whole team. Messages then get disseminated from the captains to the team, and I don't know if we want to say that's okay or not.
Yeah, for the captains to run something, right? So they might be communicating with 3 or 5 of them so that they're running a practice or communicating out to the rest of the players. I also...
Over summer, sometimes over summer league
how
stuff.
How often does your school tutor check email, and what do you do with the scenario where you have 130 kids at the Reggie Lewis Center all spread out at a track meet and something happens? Do you think they're going to grab their phone and check their email, or do you think they're going to see a text and get a communication that way? And it could be something like, you're missing 3 kids and the bus is trying to leave, right? I mean, it's part of how we reach out to them. So I'm not sure that email is, I think there are, I guess, have we talked to the athletic director or some of the coaches about some of the real life problems that we have that this, because otherwise I think that it may be worked around in some way. So I feel like...
But if you got 130 kids and you're missing one, you're going to have one captain with you. More than likely, if you have multiple captains, why can't the captain reach out to those kids? I just
ask a kid to do it.
Ask a kid to do it. I don't love...
Yeah, I hear you, and I see the problems with it, but
Because at the same time, it's just sort of like, if you can, there are a lot of situations where I can understand it, but if it's black and white, you're not, then if you have a kid's phone number on your phone, or, it's just.
I think the part on D is helpful because of the fact that you also have to copy the administrator. So if we found out that they weren't copying administrator, that would help with that piece. It's been a challenge in the past, and that's why we really tried to strengthen up this. We had a lot of confusion about what kind of contact you're making and what you can't. And I think it really gets back to this has to go out and it should be discussed. It would go out, we send it out to all staff once we revise, but then we would also have like Matt Baker bring it into his next meeting and things like that as well.
Would Matt Baker be the appropriate administrator to copy on all?
For the coaches, I would say yes, but
If we have access to a virtual number that the coaches can use and then actually text. But that's actually that would actually be a text to the kids. It would just be something that we could then monitor.
I'm curious, I haven't asked this to Matt, but I imagine similar to the apps that all the different club sports or whatever have is there's a protected system with, parent and then admin access to be able to see all communication. That is just an app on the coach and a athlete's phone.
Arbitrary?
The way it will
Team Snap or...
Yeah, Team Snap or all the different, I bet if we open up our phones, we have 7 of them on our phones right now.
And then we also have, drama clubs are quite large, and then we have those people are not also staff members. And
Drama Snap. No, you could probably use Team Snap.
You could use it for all of those, but...
I think the bigger issue we were trying to address is when does your social media posting infringe upon your school life? It wasn't, so I hear you on all that, and if you want us to look into it further.
But most of the changes were,
Yes. Yeah, thinking about the contact between.
I'm okay with the first part.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's the rest that I think I just would have put a little more thought and time into. We've got great staff and coaches and advisors and everything, but I think it's just important to protect everyone.
I just want to make sure they see a way to still do the communications they have and have an ability to give some input on it. Maybe we can't work around it, but it would be before we make this type of change.
Yeah, at a bare minimum, I do think it would be appropriate to say there shouldn't be any one-on-one.
Right.
It should always be coach, teacher, whatever, and some group of kids that makes sense, not just a random group of kids either, if it's your captains, your whole team, your whole, all of your actors,
I could see that when they're sending out the group message, but then it also could be a child who could be sick or something and want to just tell a personal situation.
But then
to
copy
the
the parent, then
something like
you
that,
get the
right?
parents' numbers, and that could be an email.
Can we have Matt Baker come to the next policy meeting?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
We have a date for that already, so I'll
I
just add
believe
it.
so.
Yeah.
And
I think I'll run it through particularly the middle school and high school principal as well, because I would want to see if they want to come speak to it.
Sure.
Thank you.
And then if we could add just, any, impending classified military strikes, all those should go through Signal. I just, group chats there. That would...
Take the microphone.
All right, tutoring for pay.
Do you want me to read that one?
Sure. So this is a new policy. It is one that was recommended by MASC, and we don't have it. It does, some of the language does overlap with the ethics training that teachers do, but MASC recommended that districts also adopt a policy as well.
I think we had something that covered some of this, not using school resources for tutoring and things like that. Wasn't there?
It falls under ethics because
Is it within the ethics one already?
You
Okay.
can't tutor your own student, even if you have a student in second grade, that summer you couldn't tutor them, or you can't tutor them while you're a parental.
But also you can't use school resources, including your
can't
classroom,
do it.
to do that.
You
and things
can't
like that.
benefit monetarily and things like that. Yeah, that's already under the ethics policy.
I know we've slightly moved on, but can policy also just look at IJNDD Wellesley's policy on it, where there is something about district recognizes that in limited cases use of cell phone text messages, and then they give a more limited, they give some guardrails on it. I just think it might be good to reference it too.
Okay, so tutoring for pay, it's policy GCRD. Definition. Tutoring means giving private instruction or help to an individual or group for which the teacher receives, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, remuneration other than through the school committee. A teacher cannot recommend that one of his or her own students get tutoring and then be paid to tutor that same student in a second job. A teacher may not tutor students who are currently in their class. Even if the teacher does not recommend that the current student receive private tutoring, the teacher should not tutor current students. Teachers and other public employees may not approach a student or the student's parents, guardians, seeking private tutoring work. A teacher may provide tutoring when the relationship is initiated by the parents or guardians or a student, but if the student is, or in the future may be, under the teacher's authority, the teacher will need to provide a written disclosure. A teacher cannot use school resources, such as classrooms or materials in connection with a private tutoring business. A public school employee cannot use school or district website to advertise private tutoring services. Schools cannot send home brochures for a particular tutoring service with children. Tutoring is not to be recommended for a student unless the appropriate teacher of the student involved is consulted and agrees that it will be of real help. If tutoring seems advisable, the principal may give the parents or guardians a list of persons who are willing to tutor. This list may include teachers, but not the student's teacher of the subject in which he or she is to be tutored. You say they. Tutoring for pay is not to be done in the school building. Note, a teacher can tutor in their own district if the district approves for and pays for the tutoring and hires them according to the provision in the teacher's collective bargaining agreement. Source MASC, reviewed 2022. Yeah. Any questions?
I just made two little things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was all.
All right.
Last one. This is JEC, Middle School Pathway Exploration. This is a new policy based on DESE's request for middle school career pathway exploration. So students understanding what pathways they have open to them in high school, whether it's at Holliston High or one of the vocational or agricultural schools nearby. Students in the Holliston Public Schools have multiple opportunities available to them for exploring and pursuing their future careers, and it is a priority of the district to continually expand these opportunities and align them with regional workforce needs. Residents of Holliston have access to career technical pathways, and the district should identify the in-district regional and agricultural schools offering CTE and explain how they may connect to students' secondary and post-secondary academic and career planning. This policy outlines a pathway exploration process for middle school students in Holliston Public Schools as they and their families make decisions about high school. Middle school career exploration. The Holliston Public Schools implementation of college and career planning for students directly connects the exploration of CTE schools and programs to a student's broader academic and career goals. Holliston works with students to explore their interests, skills, and values starting in middle school. This self-discovery process guides students as they research high school pathways and make informed decisions about which school environment, whether a traditional high school or a specialized CTE program or vocational program, best aligns with their emerging goals. Informing students of available pathways. Holliston Public Schools will take the following steps annually to ensure students are informed about their high school options. Information sharing. Annually, middle schools will provide member CTE vocational schools with the names, addresses, email addresses, and primary language spoken at home of all enrolled 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. On-campus assemblies. Each fall, all 8th grade students will have the opportunity to attend assemblies on campus at the middle school and hosted by the CTE vocational school. These events will provide students with information about CTE programs and the application process. School tours. Each fall, all 8th grade students will have the opportunity to tour their regional vocational school. Transportation expenses will be covered by the vocational school. These tours will be scheduled during the school day and will be considered an excused absence. Promotion of events. We will share information about vocational school open house, career night, and informational events on the district website and through regular communication channels such as school newsletters. Application interviews. We will provide opportunities at the middle school during the school day for vocational schools to schedule in-person informational interviews with students who have applied. Online resources. By October 15th each year, the district website will publish pertinent information about vocational school options, including links to admission applications, admissions policies, and open house informational event schedules. Providing admission records to CTE schools. Middle schools will provide relevant information to member vocational schools for students who have applied. This may include documentation of student interest, attendance records, and discipline records in accordance with the vocational school's approved admissions policy and DESE guidance. Student high school transition. The middle school team will work with representatives in the vocational school to support the transition of students accepted and planning to enroll to ensure the best possible transition. This may include invitations to team meetings, connections with middle school counselors, forwarding important information regarding course placement and specific student needs. Maintenance of records. The Robert Adams Middle School will maintain a record of all on-site presentations, assemblies, and student tours to CTE schools, along with other relevant information about collaboration between the district and member CTE vocational schools. These records will be made available to DESE upon request.
So, sorry, where did you say this one came from?
DESE.
They're mandating it?
Dr. Custom, do you remember?
So the DESE is requiring that districts are going to have to upload their policy on middle school pathways. And I had to apply for a waiver already because November 1st was the deadline, but they didn't tell us till August. So I've already applied for the waiver for this one. The other one, we have a little more time. And then we will have to prove that we have done this. But then this policy, if we don't have it done by that deadline, wouldn't go in effect until next year. But they want it done this year. And so I put a date of late January just to make sure we got the policy complete.
So the Keith Tech, Norfolk Aggie, I mean, these are great options for some of our kids, and I think that it's great that we have them. I personally hate the idea that we promote them. I mean, I don't want to hide them, but I mean, they get slick brochures and, all this kind of stuff, and then we bust them over there. I mean, we should also do this, I guess, for our own high school, but I don't know, I'm just going to vote against it, but, vote against what DESE wants, but it's nothing against the schools and the options. We should make sure the kids who want those types of career pathways get the information, but
Just so, Dan, just so you know, prior to this, every year we have already been required to send out
No, I know, and now we're just codifying it and putting it on.
And they were, David, they've been doing the tour for a long time, too, right?
Yep, I hated that.
So it's not really going to change our practices,
No, I know.
with you, but
now we're just putting it right.
And I think some of this is just coming up the recommendations from the federal level, as we've heard about, related to career tech. And I think,
Look at they're great programs.
I agree. I think we all would agree the value of this. In the perfect world, we'd like to have a CT vocational pathways. And that's why we're trying to create some of our pathways at the high school to hopefully encourage some kids to stay and not go out and be able to have more offerings for them here.
I just have one tiny picky comment. Can we define CTE somewhere?
Career tech education.
Yeah.
It's always helpful when you do it.
Thank you. Any questions on that one? No? Okay, then let's continue moving on. Central office updates.
There's a lot that's been going on. You obviously heard about homecoming and the events there, and you heard about all the drama offerings coming up. So we're just very busy with all of the staff events. Joni's going to talk about the November 4th PD and upcoming sessions as well. I think the biggest challenge that we found is the number of, and I think this might address some of your conversation later, the principals and I, when we met the other day, had talked extensively about how many short weeks we've had at the beginning of the year. And I know that's been challenging for parents. It's also disruptive for the students. So I don't have an answer to it. It is the way our calendar is laid out, but I just thought I'd point that out, that the principals and staff are talking about this. This year in particular just seems like we had a real heavy front-loaded a lot of those days off, and it's been challenging for the kids to get in the rhythm. And hopefully, the next one is November again. So. And then we get into the holidays as well. So it's just that's made it challenging. But all in all, the schools are off to a great start. And actually, Dr. Jordan and I had a joint labor management meeting with our HFT president and our professional representative, and we had some good conversations there as well. And I think we're still overall hearing pretty good things, and I know David might mention that as well, about the lack of disruption as far as the earlier start times. It's actually been much smoother than we were hoping, and it's a good thing. So I think in general, nothing is ever perfect, but we're feeling pretty good about how the school year started despite these shortened weeks. It's been a little bit problematic.
Thank you.
While the two of them were meeting with the union, I was participating in our second elementary ELA curriculum review of the year, which is going really well. Also, Jenny Mann, myself, and Caitlin Kinsky have been meeting with the DESE coaches on a regular basis. We just had last week our third New Teacher Institute meeting of the year. Great group of new staff. We have 10. We've completed 3 for the year. Also trained all new mentors for our new staff that needed it. David Liss and I attended the Project Lead the Way conference last Monday. It was great to interact with a lot of different districts and get some great ideas on how they handle their Project Lead the Way program. PD Council meetings up and running again. We had our last meeting October 15th. Remember, that's when both the union and admin have equal sides. We're very busy planning our November 4th PD. I am thrilled that my grants finally got approved. So just to remind you guys, in Holliston here, we have Title I grant, which is only for Placentino. It's $58,674. A Title II grant, which is for PD, $29,925. Title III, which is for MLLs. A section has to go to supporting students within the classroom. Community events, PD for our MLL teachers, and supplies and materials, it's $13,214. Title IV, $10,000 is also for PD. And just to remind you, we have the PRISM grant, $224,200, and we also got approved the genocide grant for the second year, $7,499. So really excited that those finally got approved. That's it.
There's some discussion as far as the town meeting and some of the requests that went through there. Immediately the next morning, Mark Frank reached out to me and a group to start the process of putting together the bids for the flag field and the roads. The timing of that needs to be at rocket speed in that we need to complete kind of the field before we start the road, and then the road needs to be done before school starts next year. So we'll try to get out to bid on that as soon as we possibly can. We're meeting tomorrow to just have a preliminary conversation of whether we're doing one big project as far as the combination of the flag field and the roads and the parking lot and anything that ties into that as far as companies bidding on that, or we split that up into a couple bids, potentially different contractors, but we're just going to weigh the options as far as like the cost benefit of that. I don't know if this is going to be mentioned with kind of the SOI update, but also just because as an FYI, there is kind of some timeliness to some work that we're trying to do within the solar project, and some updates in communication that we need to kind of make some fast decisions on by October 28th of this month. So I didn't know if now is the time to expand upon that, or whether we wanted to look at that at a later point in time. But that's something that I want to think about doing, and what you all wanted to do with that. So.
Yeah, we can talk about it quickly right now. I forwarded out an email that Beth Greenblatt, our solar consultant, sent us today. A few steps. Basically, we need to sign some things, essentially locking us into to getting allocated kilowatt at whatever the state has, and so the application period is like October 15th to the end of the year. If you read it, it's basically non-binding and is all contingent upon the this is not the actual lease agreement where we really need to review it. And so I think that she's going to have the town manager sign it probably for the select board. Since it's not on our agenda, though it wasn't known before the agenda was posted, you know, I'm fine if Dr. Kuska or Dr. Jordan wants to sign on behalf of the schools. We've already, it basically reaffirms kind of what we did when we sponsored the warrant article. So it's not anything major, but it was. I didn't realize that there was going to need to be action so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're okay with that, I'd be happy to sign it and get it back to them.
I think it makes sense. We voted on this as a committee before, then it was passed by town, so I think it's the understanding is that they'll sign on our behalf.
Yeah, I mean, we will have a real vote review of the lease agreement, the contract, before we do that. But I think for this, just to keep it moving, I don't know if you want to vote on that or just kind of consensus and just that matters.
I think just because it's not on for a vote, you probably don't want to.
I don't think we need to, because I think they knew they could sign on our behalf based on the town.
Right. But I do think it's important that someone from the school sign it in addition to someone from the town. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you, sir?
I'm sneaking in here, even though I'm not on your list.
I'm going to add you.
Yeah.
We just didn't want her to feel pressured. I know you had
Right.
asked to attend the meetings. We're fine with that, but we didn't want you to feel pressured.
I have a little list. I'll be quick. I just want to say that we've been working on the November 4th PD coming up and trying to align with what the district is doing right now. Today I met with Jerry Alvernet and trying to see how we can cross-hatch what we're both doing and make it more beneficial for the entire department so that we have the counselors and the psychologists now integrated with the special ed staff, because we both have our niches of what we're doing, but we want to make sure we have a way that everybody's working together. That's particularly critical because we're making sure this year with the law about the testing and IEP meetings happening in the 30 days, and within 45 days we're tracking it already to try to see how we're doing. It's not that the state has asked us to, but if we're finding that we're having some backups, we want to investigate and try to figure out how we're making all our commitments, our legal commitments to the state. So that process has begun. For me, I got to be a guest chef in the high school SOAR program, and that was really exciting, and I brought Michelle LeMay along with me, and together we made the old Bergson pound cake sundaes that we both used to enjoy as kids. So we had a chance to work with the class on that. I've been working closely with the CPAC, and I think it's well known, but I'll reiterate that the trunk or treat is coming up, and we hope everybody can support it this coming Saturday. For the students, it's a really great event. I also know, and I'll come back and repeat, that we will have a unified basketball fundraising activity coming up in November, but that's more details to follow. The big one right now is the trunk or treat. And I just want to talk about the fact that we're also looking at our time out spaces because the laws are changing in the state And I've been working with Dr. Kuska talking about when they come in this spring, because it's our review year this year, that they'll look probably at our spaces and trying to figure out whether we need any grants to make sure everything is in order according to state regulations. You actually, just from walking around, you're in a really good place already compared to some other places I've been in. So do we have to do some tweaks? Absolutely. But are we more than where we need to be? Yeah, we're really far along. So I think a compliment to the district for doing some good planning. That's it tonight.
Thank you. So next is personnel, and it looks like we are going to potentially vote on a new Miller Club.
Yes. Here's my tab. Oh, that is the right tab. This should be it. All right. So normally I don't bring you stipend approvals this time of year. We usually we have a whole process. The first year of a stipend, there's a pilot year, and staff members, they pilot it, and then the administrator determines whether they're going to move forward. And then the beginning of that next year, but by the end of that first year, they then move it forward to me, and we negotiate the factors with the HFT, and you would have voted on it in the spring. This one's a little bit unusual just because we have at the Miller School right now, we have a jazz band stipend, and we have a, what's the other one, the regular, just a band stipend and then a jazz band. But we don't have a chorus stipend because it wasn't necessary the way the choral program was running before. But now with shared staff at the buildings, which is actually making this program much stronger, having the students have the chorus teacher and also the band teacher follow them up from Miller all the way to middle school. There's really, the numbers are growing. But because of that, what they found at Miller is the choral instructor also needs to be getting a stipend for some of that after school time. So we mirrored this. I reached out to Jamie Gattone and said, would you consider negotiating it even though the timeline is off? And she was willing. So we mirrored this right off of what the jazz and the regular band are getting at Miller, which gets us to the factors here that you can see. And an overall $1,489 would be the stipend for that. And I think it's important for us to, the program's already starting, but it would be important to initiate this, and it's not a lofty amount as well.
So I don't know, I see that you both signed this now, and so I don't know how you want to handle it, but the compound factor is wrong. With the new contract, it floats, so it's $312.87 for this year. So it's $1,564.35.
You have that template, right? Yeah. Okay, do you
So
review that?
do you want us to vote on it before you change it, or you think?
If you're okay with the factors, David put this together, and he'll fix that, and then I'll just ask Jamie to fix it. It's in the,
the factors were negotiated with the union.
Yeah, so as long as you're okay with the factors, that you can vote on the factors, and then you can get me the updated one, David, and I'm sure she'll be fine, and we'll just get that re-signed.
I'm sure no one's going to find something more yet.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah.
Sure.
To approve the Miller School Chorus Advisor stipend.
So
Second.
All in favor? That passes.
Thank you.
Sorry, should I clarify factors? Or
as amended.
As amended. Okay. Reports from subcommittees, communications.
We met this week to discuss kind of the planning, for communications for the superintendent search process. We did discuss, and I don't know if we need to vote here, we can't at this point, but we did discuss being able to, our messaging the community around the forums, following up to November 4th and 5th.
Yeah,
6th.
so we're just firming up the dates, so I'll have firm dates and probably a Zoom link, so we will have a community forum. I'm kind of jumping ahead a tiny bit, but since you're talking about communications, I'll say it a couple times so that people can catch it at multiple points of this meeting if they watch it. We will be having a community forum at the Upper Town Hall on November 5th at 9 a.m. That's in person. That's a Wednesday, and then Thursday night or evening, November 6th, I think at 7 o'clock, we'll do a Zoom community forum, so people have the option of joining either way. And so I'll get you a Zoom link and the details of all of that.
Okay, so we
put a
do
communication
plan to have a number of communications out regarding those forms once they do firm up, leading up to it, including probably 2 or 3 we said leading up to, so hopefully this week we can get one, or early next week at this point, and then obviously leading up to it, and as well as following up too, we said with the survey that's out, combining with as well. So yeah, that is the plan at this point, and I know we did say we'd plan to meet tomorrow, but we are no longer, after I did meet with Sarah, or we discussed with, at this meeting, so obviously missed the deadline. So once that's firmed up, if you could let me know, and then we'll get the emails out to the community on reminders.
Thank you. Policy. I feel like you did lots of reading already.
Yes. Yeah, so we met in October, we do have the 4 policies. We're going to meet again in November and we'll look at that social media policy and the competency determination one again, as well as a couple others.
Yes. Budget?
We have not met. I was going to do the solar under this, but it was probably better under Dr. Jordan's update. But we are getting into the beginning of budget season, so I know Dr. Jordan's working on part 1 of that. We are there already, yes. And so we will have to have some meetings, or a meeting at least, in between now and
November 14th.
November 13th. So
14th. 13th.
13th. But yeah, we are. And as the chair of the finance committee stated at the town meeting, the current look at the town's budget is now a shortfall of $1 million for the overall town, and that is with 3.25% for the schools. Last year, after all was said and done, we were at $600,000 in the hole, but that was at 4.25% for the schools. So it's gonna be a tough year. I can continue to go.
No, that's okay. You can stop right there. No, that's fine. Superintendent eval?
Yes, so Dr. Kuska had indicated that she drafted her goals. So we will be meeting on October 28th at 6 p.m. in the central office.
Okay, great. And then math advisory?
We met last week. We're meeting again next week. It's a really great group of people, very engaged and really contributing to the process.
Okay. So just, I kind of alluded to a little bit of the superintendent search activity that's going on. Well, we've been scheduling, working with HYA, scheduling lots of individual meetings for them to receive feedback from various PTO, so anyway, lots of people. Should have most of those invitations done by tomorrow. That's the goal. Just a couple things. So we've got the 2 community forums that we'll be talking about those more. I did want to have a vote on the screening team. So the general process will be, we've got the survey open through November 5th. Is that correct? No, November 7th, sorry.
After the forum, or just as forums out.
HYA will be using information gathered from the survey as well as the various focus groups of the community members to put together a leadership profile. They will present the leadership profile to us at our November 13th meeting. Just wanted to kind of gauge people's, they are willing to come in person or they could do it via Zoom. Does anyone have a strong preference either way?
My preference would be in person, but again, it depends on how far away they are. This is, if everyone lives within an hour, that is one thing. If they're 3 to 5 hours away, then Zoom is fine.
Okay.
It's kind of.
So if Zoom is okay, I will leave that as an option. Of course, they're always welcome to come. I'd like to vote on the screening team. So once the leadership profile's put together, then they will help screen resumes as they come in. They will put together a slate of candidates that the screening team will take a look at and kind of evaluate in terms of who shall be. They'll kind of come up with the semifinalists. And then the screening team will actually interview those semifinalists in person. So we've kind of we've got a group of 7 that we are going to be working with. 2 school committee members, 2 school administrators, a select board member, an HFT representative, and Keith Boudet. I don't know what to call him, but retired. Yeah, he's just Keith. So the plan is to have Hillary Breshenhan, depending on the times, can we vote on either Don or me still?
Not really.
No, we have to name.
Sure. We can.
How about, can we do Don as a...
Yeah, we can with an alternate, yeah.
Yeah, just depending on how the timing works out, because we both have stuff going on.
I can't do, and one weekend Sarah can't do.
Okay.
So it really depends on what weekend.
That's fine.
So it will be Don as a school committee rep with Hillary, and I'll serve as a backup.
Sure.
And then David List and Jamie Slaney, Ben Sparrow from the select board, and Alex Strum. So does that sound okay to everyone?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I know we had discussed having another parent representative on there. I think maybe just discuss briefly the thought there. Just so that we can sort of preemptively.
I mean, I think the intent with all of these various forums is really, and the survey, is to use those as the vehicles to express your desires and concerns and thoughts on what type of leader we're looking for. So that really is the way that we're kind of gathering most of that feedback. With this group, we've got 3 parents. We've got the two school committee members are definitely parents, and then Ben Sparrow also has a child in the district. So that's kind of how we're covering it that way.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I think HOA was also, when I met with them anyway, they talked a lot about how prospective applicants really like to ensure confidentiality early on in the process. And so the smaller the group is, the more comfortable applicants are for it. So this helps keep the group small.
They conveyed the same thing to me when they spoke with me about how it widens the applicant pool if you maintain a smaller group. In fact, their recommendation was even smaller than this.
Yes.
So as stated by Sarah, that's 7. I think that they had even mentioned the number as low as 5 to me, but didn't want to go above that.
I think, sorry, no, I'm just going to say, I think that we are going to ensure that there's tons of community feedback opportunities, even as we go through the process, so not just the community forums, all different group sessions that people are being invited to, the survey, but then also even, I think maybe I've seen other districts, when you get to the finalists, they then have a further survey once that people have been reviewed publicly, so that it's not going to be this, we want to hear from the community, we want to hear as much as they want to provide us with information.
And we've got student groups meeting. The students will be met with in person. The community will also be in person. We also have a session scheduled at the senior center, or the center, in person. So there's a number of ways, via Zoom. Please fill out the survey. So we are looking for feedback, for sure. The final thing I wanted to cover with this is the timing of when the screening team would meet to actually interview the semifinalists. The way HYA does it, kind of in the middle of the week, they would meet with the screening committee probably over Zoom to kind of cover a few things like confidential agreement, just the process that they'd be following with the interviews. And then on Friday, like later evening, like 4 to 9 or so, they would be bringing some applicants in to interview, and then probably an all-day session on Saturday. And then we would be presented with finalists to interview the following week. So sometime during either our regularly scheduled school committee meetings or possibly an additional meeting. So the timing we were kind of thinking that made sense was to have the screening team meet on Friday, late afternoon, January 16th, and then most of the day on the 17th. But there's a little bit of flexibility if that really doesn't work for people, and then we would try and do interviews like around January 22nd here. So I guess we'll kind of pencil that in as a date, and I can have HYA communicate that with the screening team, and we can see how that flies.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Should we send out another communication to the community about all this?
Yeah.
We can outline the dates and the process a little more if you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it makes more sense to, from that perspective, we get the updates around the forum first, keep it very focused, like get your feedback, and then follow up quickly with the dates that we align upon, because especially if they change.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, and because this is still a very small group, but we need to make sure people are available, and
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And once we.
And if it doesn't, we need to be able to adjust.
And we could say something like we're anticipating interviews in late January.
Hi, Joanne. This is Kate.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We already have some type of email regarding the timeline.
Okay.
Like high level months at that point, so I think that was sufficient as we get, and we said we'd follow up with as we get closer with dates. But again, most important is getting the feedback from the community on the leadership profile. Go from there. And then making sure we publish that. Right, 'cause that's
Yes,
what
that will get published too, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So do we need to take a vote on the actual selection team members?
Sarah's proposal.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve Hillary, Dawn, Keith.
Sarah's a backup.
Sarah's a backup. David List, Jamie Slaney, Ben Sparrow, Keith Boudet, and Alex Strum to serve on the selection team.
And they've been earning more.
Yes, yes. Surprise.
Yeah.
No, they've been talking, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion? All in favor?
Second.
Great.
Moved by Joe, second by.
Second.
Did I?
Yeah, I'm voting
Okay.
yes too, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't keep up.
Okay, and then do updates on the SOI?
We don't have any further updates. We've gotten letters from both Senator Spoka and Rep. Rena DeRosa that we're sending in or have been sent in. I just got another email from Susan Nickel asking for some information because they want to send a letter quickly about the roof repair program. So I got her some of that stuff, but they've not posted anything yet online.
Meeting is the 29th for the roof.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll know something soon, and then we can let people know.
Okay. Moving on to calendar. Do we want to talk about calendar?
No.
I know. So we have received some community feedback. We have received some teacher feedback. That there is some interest in bringing this discussion back. It's something that other districts and our neighbors are kind of mulling over as well.
So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
There is a lot of work that needs to be done. It's a tricky thing to think about, I guess.
One thing I feel strongly about, because I've been on the committee since we've had a group come in and advocate for Diwali, and we had a group come in and advocate for Eid. I think many of us here even saw them come and tell us why it was important and celebrate the decision and follow up after various meetings. I want to make sure there's a lot of transparency, and those same groups that came before us have the opportunity to come back and express how they felt about us honoring those holidays and how they feel about the consideration to now remove them. So I think a really important part, if we start this, is the communication piece. That maybe personally, we have the emails from the folks that reached out to us before, making sure they know that we're considering this, and getting a lot of communication out there on it.
So, roll it back a little bit. I'm not looking at any sort of look at the calendar as looking at the holidays and just looking at the holidays. So I think it needs to be a holistic review. We've done some surveying of the community about moving different vacations around, and that wasn't well received. But we never also sort of, at least since I've been on the committee, haven't really pulled to see where people would favor cutting things back. Maybe they don't want to lose the vacations, but they want to lose the religious holidays less. So maybe they would be more in favor of. We haven't sort of looked at things holistically in different ways. We haven't looked consistently on how we deal with PD and whether we've had conversations, but we haven't. So this is not about get rid of the holidays. In my mind, this is about looking at everything.
Now, I do care about recency bias. Yes, this could impact
It could impact everybody, but looking at those that have come last, to give them a heads up versus others that the holidays have been happening for decades at this point, should be equally looked at.
Well, I don't think it's not like we would get rid of the more recent holidays, but we just hadn't.
Exactly.
This is the one. People probably get shot for this, but the one positive thing now with how many holidays we have is that if we did remove the holidays, we would be removing them for every religion.
Agree.
Almost not every religion, but most of the representative religions. That's not to say that's where we should go, but I mean at least we've got to.
Part of the discussion.
That's part of the discussion, but we've got to look. I mean, we've got to see what our neighbors are doing and where our staff live and reside. Because if our neighbors are, not going to move and they're going to maintain these days off, we won't be able to staff the buildings, even if we, remove them, and we'll end up in the same position we're in with those snow day type of things, and that's not good either. So there's a lot to be looked at, and what I would say is I would be willing to sort of help lead the sort of creating a group to look at it, but it would be under the condition that this would not be for next year, that this is something that would be a long process, that we would have to look at, a lot of different things, because I think this is a very important decision, and there's going to be a lot of people with a lot of, thoughts on it.
I think you laid out the fact that we do need a larger group outside of us to really look at this holistically, not just take it a singular approach, and will require not just one-time feedback, but over-time feedback from what our neighbors are doing to what our community feels like, how our community is made up. This is going to be
a teacher voice. To put out some type of survey again, and also maybe additional forums for
we hear feedback from the survey, or feedback that was the community-led feedback at this point. I think it would be good to start there.
The petition, other than the.
We also had a few hundred signatures, but I think it was also not very clear what exactly it was saying, which days it was talking about. So I mean,
it was not a survey. It was more of just seeking interest in having the conversation.
There are definitely a large group of people in the community that I think would be okay removing the holidays. I also think that there's a large group of people that will not be okay removing the holidays. So.
Can we table this till after the community forums and the survey that are currently scheduled?
Too many surveys.
So as far as, I mean, my thought would be, if you want me and someone else or whatever to do it, would be to come up, basically do sort of what you sort of did with the math, to come up with a plan, to come back to them, present the plan, to begin the conversations that would then take through the end of the year, and maybe even over the summer, to then have sort of something to discuss at the beginning of next year. So I mean, like, this is not where I'm thinking of sending out a survey anytime soon.
It's also like what's on the table, like what are the options.
Well, I want to get all the data. Where are our staff located? Reach out to other school committees of surrounding towns to see what they're doing. Hopkins has been more active recently on the holidays, but maybe other school districts are looking at different solutions. There are also contractual implications. Not, some of them are smaller, but then there are, we have. Well, in any event, there's a lot of things that go into why our calendar ends up being the way that it is.
The good news is next year's schedule or calendar is
reasonable.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of buffer, but every year I think also comes into the case that it could be very challenging the following year. So
right. So if you want to sort of table this and then not start it until we're not officially sort of do it until December or something, that's fine. I'm just saying I would not plan on.
That's fine. I just didn't want to confuse people with which survey or get people engaged in one thing but not another.
Right.
But Dan, I think start gathering that data is important now, so that we have.
I think that how this is communicated is important. As you said, it's important not to look at just the holidays and to make sure that different people have voices in this, but think about how that message is conveyed with everything that's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think we should, though, not to say table, but pause for the next few months.
That's fine. I mean,
but quickly move.
But I think also, to be clear, like, we've been talking about this for a couple of years now too. Like, it's not like this is.
But we've been talking specific things for the last few years. Like, should we get rid of the March or February? Holiday.
No, but no, I mean, the holidays were always part
PD
of it.
days. There was a question last year about the placement of professional development.
Are there creative solutions potentially? Yeah.
Okay.
Could I just
Saturdays.
Could I just suggest that, I know that part of this was to get the calendar done earlier this year than in the past. If you're not planning to change for next year and you're going to get some communication out that you are going to look at it, I just would ask that you might consider trying to vote on the calendar sooner, because that will affect, the planning for PD for next year. The sooner we get that, it's easier to plan for those days.
Sure.
Table, we weren't even looked at last year's or next year's calendar. Let's solidify that, and then we can.
Okay.
So they're not where we were last year. We're halfway through the year. We're like, oh, we got to think about this next year's schedule.
Okay. So we'll just pause.
We'll bring it back.
We'll bring it back. Yeah. Okay. So we wanted to just quickly talk a little bit about the SSC job posting and just kind of the process for, we've got interim right now, and we're just kind of thinking about when to post.
Yeah, I think when you and I talked briefly that I think for the timeline, you have a superintendent search, you want to get that underway. So I think January posting, the original posting, would still give you plenty of time. That's a good time of year to start a search for, the last few years it's been challenging for many of these roles to, to find strong candidates. But I feel like January would be a good timeline going into February to start doing those interviews. So If you want, I
Okay,
could put
yeah.
together sort of a timeline like I've done in the past, and
Posting is one thing, and then you start sort of the interviewing process.
Right.
Could we post it sooner? And with a note in the posting saying open till
Right, open
January
till-
31st, February 15th, whatever.
Something like that, which would align with where we're looking at interviews by the end of January and decisions pretty soon after that. So they'd be able to give some input if we were to be closing applications, say, early February or late January.
Yeah, I'm going to get to posting as soon as probably have out.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation. I don't know if that's technically our role, but at least.
do you want me to sort of draft out a timeline based on past searches that we've done and then bring it back to the next meeting?
Yeah, or should we discuss like the job description and the posting at our next meeting, the November 13th meeting, and then we could get it up. You know, we could discuss whether it goes up in November, or December, or what we're thinking, but with, you know, the intention of closing it, the timeline that would allow us to have some clarity with the new superintendent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Yeah, that
we
makes
should,
sense.
ideally, I'd like to get it up in November.
Okay. Then we just have policy subcommittee minutes.
I think that was in there by mistake.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like,
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that until now. Is there anything else?
We don't have an executive session.
No executive session.
Schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Schedule. I know, if we do it now, we'll be early by 6 minutes.
Okay, well, let's give it for a little bit. Then.
No.
What are we talking about?
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Or does that have to be a roll call?
No.
No.
Only if
Okay.
we're going to executive session.
Okay, great. Good night, Holliston.